If I could have Jill Bardo, Deanne Markle, and Tamara Otero please stand, our governing board members. And now to start our program with opening words, our governing board president, Tamara Otero.
Oh, I don't have enough hands. Good morning. I was going to carry my phone around because it has my outline. And you guys are a much bigger audience than what was in my closet when I practiced this, so I'm a little nervous. Have you seen the commercial about the little boy who thinks he has glossophobia? If you haven't seen it, you can Google it because it's a commercial for Google. But he's afraid of public speaking. And so this morning I thought, I think I might have glossophobia. But my kids told me I don't. I preach and speak all day long. So I guess I don't have glossophobia. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about why I wanted to run for the school board. When I decided to run for the school board, see my phone's going to keep turning off and then I'll be speechless. When I decided to run for the school board, I told my friends and family I was going to run for the school board, and they said, why? Why would you want to do more work for less pay? And I said, well, because I want to make a difference, right? And I think now that I've been on the board for a while, I realize that sometimes that's kind of a cliche. Oh, I just want to make a difference. And so this morning I was thinking about all of you, and I know you all make a difference, and I thought, you know, there's more to it than just saying I'm going to make a difference. So when I first got on the school board, the first thing I noticed about the school, the Cajon Valley Union School Society, or excuse me, school district, was that it was a secret society. It had its own language. And my first few meetings kind of looked like this. And everybody talked about the SAP and the SARBs and everything else that was going on. And so I emailed Lisa on my second meeting and said, before I go to the next meeting, I need the journal, the secret dictionary that tells you what all of those words mean, because I have no idea what those mean. And so after a while, I realized that I had been part of that. I knew part of that secret society. I'd been on PETA, right? And I have never been naked with fur on me, but I had been on PETA. And then when my kids got to middle school, I became part of pizza. And that made sense, right? Teenagers and pizza. So I did understand a few words of the secret society. And then there were these clubs. There was CV and CC, and I wasn't sure if you were supposed to join those clubs or not. And then there were the confidential employees, and so then I knew this is like way too Da Vinci Code for me. This is part of a secret society. And so the further I got into the school board, everyone talked about Ada. And Ada was like this, she was kind of a raging witch, to be honest. Everything she did had a direct implication into how we lived, right? And so I realized that Ada was super important, so I kind of needed to understand what Ada was doing. And then there was Elda, and nobody really cared that much about Elda. She seemed like she was pretty easy to get along with. And so I thought, well, maybe I should just be friends with Elda and not worry about Ada, right? And it wasn't long, and I met this guy named PI, and everybody talked about PI. PI was so important. And so PI made me nervous, because when we decided that we were part of PI, that was a big deal. And they told me, now that we're in PI, would you like to be date? I thought, geez, I guess I need to ask my husband about this one. But it wasn't long, and I was involved in date and PI, we all kind of went together, right? And so I realized that, yeah, we're part of a secret society and we do have our own language, but really it's not a secret society. We're part of a great group, and here's a picture of a few of our members. And when you start realizing that, then you realize that there are ways to make a difference. And so I was thinking a little bit about that story. You've probably all heard it, maybe it's kind of a parable, about the little girl, and she's on the beach, and there's been a big storm, and the beach is covered in what we used to call starfish, and now it's not PC, we call them sea stars. But it was covered with sea stars, right? The whole beach was covered with sea stars. And so she, one at a time, would pick one up, and she'd chuck it back into the ocean. and there was a crowd, and they said to her, you know the story, they said to her, why are you doing that? Look at all these sea stars. You can't make a difference. And so she picked one up, and she thought about it, and she looked at the man, she looked at the sea star, and she chucked it back in the ocean, and she said, I made a difference to that one. And really, that's how we make a difference, right? And so the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it's not making a difference. That's not what we're about. It's caring. And when you care, you just make a difference without trying. So I wanted to tell you some stories about people that I know that have cared. And the first one I want to tell you about is Uncle Bob. When I was a little girl, I grew up in the Midwest, in rural Missouri. And my sister and I rode the bus a half hour every morning and an hour and a half every afternoon. And my mom was a real stickler that we looked like ladies. And we lived on a long, skinny rural driveway, gravel driveway, and Uncle Bob was our bus driver. And in the middle of the winter, when it was snowy, Uncle Bob would back up our bus, his bus up our driveway, that long, skinny gravel driveway. And when he'd get to the top, he'd toot his horn a couple of times, and my sister and I would come out. And I can promise you that wasn't part of his job description. But he did it because he cared. And it made a difference to me, and it made a difference to my mom. And then I'll tell you a story about a little girl who decided that she was given a unique opportunity to go to a different school. And that school provided a different educational experience than what she had at her current school. And so she went. And she made friends, and she was close to her teacher, and she did very well. She was very successful. And at the end of the school year that summer, she was excited about going again the next year. And as summer ended, she said to her mom, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that school. And her mom said, why? You were successful, you made friends, you had a new teacher, you loved your teacher. Why don't you want to go back? And she said, because at my old school, when my tummy hurt, or I forgot my lunch, or I just felt worried, I could go to the front office, and Miss Pam, or Miss Sue, or Miss Liz, you put in the name, would give me a hug. And she'd call my mom, and she made me feel better. And I can promise you that that wasn't in their job descriptions. But they cared. And because they cared, they made a difference in that little girl's life and in her family's life. I want you guys all to think about the teacher that you knew when you were a kid. That if you can remember the name of one teacher when you were a child going to school, raise your hand. And if you can't remember that, can you remember the name of one teacher that made a difference in your child's life? If you can, remember your hand. Raise your hand. So pretty much all of you. The few of you that have dementia don't remember anything, but the rest of you remember, right? You remember. And it wasn't that they taught anything different than the teacher next door or the year before or the year after. But it was because they cared about you or they cared about your child. And so they made a difference. They made a difference in your life. And I was going to tell you a story about a janitor I know. And actually, he's here. But he used to go at lunchtime. And you know, kids can be unruly at lunchtime. There's a few brats in the bunch, right? And they'll toss trash or whatever they do. And this janitor would take aside those kids that either sat alone or were unruly. And he kind of made them his team, his project. And so they'd help him. They'd help him pick up trash. They'd help him do things around the campus. And because of that, they wanted to be with Mr. Jim. They just wanted to be with him. And I promise you, it wasn't in his job description to do that. But he cared. And because he cared, he made a difference. And then the last people I'm going to pick on are the principals. When I was a kid, if somebody said you're going to go to the principal's office, you sort of shook and trembled, right? And just the thought of I can remember my principal's names. Mr. Brower made my stomach hurt. Just the thought of him, right? But I have been in every campus. I've been in a classroom on every campus in this school district. And I have never once, and maybe it's because I was there, I have never once heard a principal say, Stephen, I'll see you after class in my office. I've never heard it. What I have heard is, Stephen, way to start your day. Marianne, you are doing such a great job this day. Wait, you're on task. Let me see what you're working on. They know them. They know them by name. They know their issues, their concerns. They know them. And so they make a difference, right? They care. And so I guess the moral of my stories is, if you want to make a difference, All you have to do is care. And it's not so much what you do, it's how you do it. So care about what you do and do what you care about. This is, if it works, this is one of my favorite quotes. People will forget what you said. You're going to leave here today and not even remember that I wore yellow. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's how we are so fortunate to be in education. All of you are, because you get to make kids feel good about themselves. It's the most blessed profession in the world. You get to make kids feel good about themselves. And it's not the job description that will ever make a difference. It's what you do, how you care in that job description that will make a difference. So I'm going to leave you with my favorite acronym, since we're all part of this secret society. And I think that you already know what it means. So have a great year and welcome back.